Before we get started with the Intuitive Heart Healer podcast today, I would love to tell you about the Anchor FM podcasting app. It is a great way to get your voice and your podcast out there, and it is absolutely free. It has a wonderful platform with great tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other wonderful podcasting apps. You can make money from your podcast with minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app to go to @anchor.fm to get started today and start your wonderful journey in podcasting. Hello and welcome to the Intuitive Heart Healer podcast. My name is Valerie McLaughlin and I am your host, Intuitive Heart Healer, energy artist, and spiritual guide. I hold space with love to help you to connect to your heart center so that you can connect greater to spirit and live a life full of love, joy, and happiness as you are guided by your intuition and higher self, helping you to heal and let go along the way so that you can ascend and become more enlightened. And today for the Intuitive Heart Healer podcast, I have a very special guest, a very special friend, Ursula, who is going to talk to us about Mars Retrograde. And I am super pumped and excited about this and excited to hear all that she is bringing. And I am ready to learn. So welcome, Ursula.
Hi, Val. Thanks for having me on again.
You're welcome. You're my reoccurring guest because I feel like every few months we need to kind of regroup because there's always something going on in the universe and there's always seems to be something that we should be talking about.
Yep, planets are constantly in motion.
Yeah. So why don't you tell our guests who don't know anything about you a little bit about yourself before we get started?
My name is Ursula Duffy, and I am a professional astrologer and a certified aromatherapist. And my company is Ursa Alchemy. And at Ursa Alchemy, I create unique blends of astrology and aromatherapy and intuitive arts to help people live in touch with their soul. And I offer astrology readings and aromatherapy services.
I love that. People in touch with their souls. It's so beautiful. And are you as super pumped as I am to be talking about Mars in retrograde?
I am. I just feel this energy coursing through my veins. It's just like, I don't know, it's so empowering.
Let's first start and talk about what a retrograde means, because I think that's important.
Yeah,
for everybody.
My list first for fun facts.
We're right on the same page. I love it.
Okay, so when a planet is retrograde, from our perspective on Earth, it appears to be moving backwards. The planet is not actually moving backwards. Context on that would be when you're on the highway and you're passing another car and they're going slower. At one moment, at the time you're passing them, they actually look like they're moving backwards. So it's the same with our perspective on Earth with the planets. Now with Mars, it's a little bit different. We've talked about Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde. So we can actually, when those planets are retrograde, they're passing between us and the sun. When Mars is retrograde, because it's further out than us, it's passing by us as close as it gets. So it's on the outer side, like on the Saturn and Jupiter and all the other planet side. But the cool thing about Mars retrograde is it's the rarest of all retrogrades because it only happens approximately every 2 years. All the other planets go retrograde more frequently. And it happens for about 2 months. So some fun facts about this particular retrograde. It starts today, officially in a couple of hours here on the East Coast. It's going to be in the sign of Aries. Mars hasn't been retrograde in the sign of Aries since 1988. And like this retrograde, it's actually fully in the sign of Aries. The last one was not. Mars has not been retrograde fully in the sign of Aries since 1941.
Whoa.
Yeah, and the last Mars retrograde, just for context, it was June through August of 2018. So this one starts today, and it will go until November 13th. And as usual with retrogrades, we feel that on either side of it as well, when the planet kind of looks like it stops in motion.
So is it the same thing like the other retrogrades where it's the REs, like recharge, regroup?
It is, however, Mars is very different because Mars is the planet of drive and motivation and action. And usually it's always a forward moving energy. It has momentum. It relates to our motivation, confidence, our personal power, facing our fears. So when it goes retrograde, we don't want to stop doing those things like we do, like say with Mercury, where it's time to pause and just do something else. When Mars goes retrograde, it can feel very frustrating because the forward momentum slows down. But it's important to think about what's going on in your life and just be open to redirecting. It's like living around here, say like when the drawbridge goes up. You know, you either sit and you wait or you find another way around.
And that's kind of like what we're in right now.
Yeah, it's just starting. It's going to be like that for the next couple of months.
Very interesting. What is the planet that rules Mars?
Mars is the planet that rules the sign of Aries.
Oh, I said it backwards.
Yeah, so that's another layer for this retrograde. So everything that I said, qualities of Mars, relate also to the sign of Aries because Mars rules Aries. It's home in the sign of Aries. It's comfortable. So some of the other things to think about with Aries, for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, that's the energy that's present at the equinox, at spring, the beginning of spring. So think about that raw power, that life force that's there with, you know, the plants pushing through the soil. It's that energy that's present of the beginning of something, of initiation. Think of an infant. That's just survival, that raw life force. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that energy is going to be powerful. It's going to be on steroids kind of for the next couple of months. So with the Mars retrograde in this particular sign, also considering the state of the world at the moment, it's really important to know how to draw on those characteristics of ourselves and put that power into something productive. It's fire energy, so fire needs movement. So some good ways to kind of work with it when it might feel a little bit overwhelming is to exercise, to sweat, learn a martial art. That could be something fun to do during the Mars retrograde in Aries. The post that I wrote about it, I called it the battle for our sovereignty. So I kind of feel like, you know, since Aries is that raw power and instinct, we're sort of in that place individually and collectively as well.
You know, for my September energy reading that I did, like what the energy of the month, what we can work on, very similar to what you're talking. I actually referred to it and preferenced this conversation because as it was coming through and I was talking about it, I'm like, oh, this has a lot to do with Mars and retrograde because the part of what I said in that reading is that it's for, like, we have to go deep. We have to do that work, face those fears and move through them. We don't have to. We never have to do anything. It's whether we choose to, we really want to. But working with this energy and doing it now would be so much more impactful for you to do that and work through that. And one of the things I did said was like, you have to learn a way to release it. And like, you know, if you go bike riding, it's not your like leisurely, oh, on Sunday morning bike ride. It's like pump it, sweat, you know, release that energy. And that's what was coming through. And that's what it sounds like Mars in retrograde is all about, doing that and getting that done.
Yeah, your forecast was spot on.
Yeah, it was a little hard to do. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Me being the positive person, it was really hard for me to come into that space and do it. So that to me was part of facing one of my, I wouldn't call it fears, but in a way it is a fear. But it still is all positive, because getting down and dirty, like, when you plant trees, like you said, like when you plant something, you get in there, you get dirty, you plant those seeds, and you sit back and you watch something beautiful grow. And so, yeah, at the time it feels maybe dirty and yucky, and you're like, oh, I gotta take a bath or a shower. But in the end, when you sit back and you're like, oh, look at this beautiful flower, look at this beautiful, like, look at my beautiful life now, like, look what I created by actually doing this and working with the Mars energy and getting gritty.
Yep. Fueling it into something productive.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to ask you, because I've heard this come up in a couple different podcasts and interviews that I've listened to, and another astrologer, is this the kind of energy that could cause like a civil unrest? Because I keep hearing that through these podcasts that something like that is possibly happening.
It is happening. So it has been happening for several months at this point. Since pretty much the planet has been in the sign of Aries. It's been in the sign of Aries since June. And it will be in Aries even after the retrograde until January. So yes, the answer is yes. We're already seeing that. Because the planet is closest when it's retrograde, this probably will get more intense. So one of the things that I sort of was reflecting on when I was writing about this was, one, individually, it's up to us to fuel the raw power into something productive that will strengthen the collective. Aries energy is about the individual. But actually, one astrologer that I was listening to that I sort of felt put it into words what I was really feeling about what this energy was going to be like. It was Adam Gainsbourg, and he said that the energy is the instinct to be what we really are.
Oh, I like that.
And that's what we should be focusing on. Yeah, I thought that was perfectly said, perfectly put, and exactly what I was feeling. Because, we've known this was coming for a while. This is like the next chapter of the 2020 saga. So it's it's the beginning of the final chapter, really. We only have a few months left of the year. So this whole year has really been, I feel, every sort of planetary thing that's happened, every historic, conjunction since January, every lunation, the Mercury retrogrades, the Venus retrograde. I feel like all of those things have kind of been our training grounds for this moment, this time.
Even the eclipse season.
Mm-hmm. Even the eclipse season, exactly. And we have another eclipse season coming up. So I feel like one of the main points to drive home in this discussion is to think about everything that we've already been through this year in the last 9 months, and think about, especially reflect back to when it was Aries season back in March. We had that new moon, and I talked about how that new moon was healing our identity. And any experiences and situations that have come from the pandemic, because that really started for us here in March, and really, really reflect on that, any intentions that were set during that new moon. And now it's time to sort of stand up for those things and these experiences and the gifts that, I think a lot of people, there are certain themes that have emerged for us individually and collectively. And I think it's time to level up. Really be in that place and harness that energy of new beginnings, because that's what Aries energy is all about. And Mars gives us the passion and the motivation to do that, and the bravery. It's about courage and bravery. It's the warrior expression of Aries energy.
The lines is buckle up, buttercup. I used that line before. I'm like, where did those come? But it like just popped in my head. It's like my silly side of my guides that come out. Like it's serious, but like also play with it. Like that's a theme that they keep trying to now home with me, and for me to like play with this, have fun with it. Like when you go to release it, you can have fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to, if you don't like, if you have this buildup and it just like rages out of you, that's not having fun with it. But if you feel it building up, and we feel it, whether we want to admit it or we recognize it, we can feel it bubbling up. Most of us can. But if we can find like a way, like to learn martial arts or boxing or whatever to release that energy, you can have fun with it, and it won't be like raging out there and you have to like attack people.
Right. And that's the civil unrest thing, to circle back to that a little bit. That's what we're seeing, and that's a very shadowy expression of this energy.
Mm-hmm.
Being a bully, you know, being a hothead, beating people up, taking out on other people, not owning up to your own individual responsibility in this whole situation. So those are very shadowy expressions of the Aries and the Mars archetypes.
And I think it's perfect timing, because as a collective, we don't ascend, we don't improve if we don't improve on ourselves first.
Exactly. We've had a lot of opportunity this year to do that. A lot.
And some of us chose not to. And some of us chose to.
Right. So the ones of us that have chosen to, keep doing it. Don't stop. There may be a redirect. Go with it. And anyone that has not, there's a lot more opportunity left.
Yeah, because it's always an opportunity. Like this is an opportunity to grow and move forward. And don't think just because like something happened, there was maybe a time that you chose not to in the past, as like, oh, I should have done this. No, you should have done what you did, because now is your opportunity to do it. Mm-hmm. And maybe you had to do what you did so that you can actually do it now.
Exactly.
So Mars is in retrograde in Aries, but it affects everybody differently.
Correct.
So there's the overwhelming is the word that was coming out. Did you hear it? Mm-hmm. Overwhelming theme, overall theme that we all will experience, but we also individually will experience differently.
Yes. Everyone has Mars somewhere in their own chart, in a different house, in a different sign. So where this retrograde is happening personally is going to make a big difference for everyone individually. So it's important to, if you want to set targeted intentions or hone in on some of the themes, knowing your own chart is very helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. And if you have not had your chart read, Ursula can do that for you. And her link to her website will be in the show notes. And I highly recommend anybody getting a chart reading, because it's your blueprint. It like shows you how to work with your life, so to speak.
Care to share about your Mars and Aries experience so far?
Sure. So my Mars is in my 6th house. Getting this right, 6th house in Aries in my natal chart. Can you tell everybody what the 6th house is? Because I don't want to fumble through it.
6th house relates to daily routines, daily practices. Mars is actually, it's happiest in the 6th house. So you have very strong Mars. Daily practice, daily routines. The highest expression of the 6th house is being of service. So it can relate to our work in the world, but like on a day-to-day level. It relates to kind of keeping our bodies healthy and functioning. It relates to our health. It kind of relates to small pets. There are some instances that are very specific examples of the sixth house relating to small pets. So everything we do day to day, what time we go to bed, what time we wake up, what we eat in the morning, what time we brush our teeth, all of those things that we do to keep our bodies functioning at an ideal level.
So my Mars in retrograde experience so far now has really been leading me up to a few different things. One, I retreated right before this, went into the woods, took some downtime and kind of retreated and been in Mother Nature and regrouped a little bit before I going into this, and especially after the summer. But I was in such like a playful space all summer and the last couple of months, and now like I knew that after I came back from my mini getaway that I wanted to be more focused on my practice and what I do. So being an intuitive heart healer, I am of service to others. And I really felt the push to really start growing that even more. And I knew that coming back and with Mars in retrograde, that this was my focus. But also a few weeks leading up to this, I felt a lot of rage and anger kind of going into this. And I took up golf again, which I haven't golfed in, I think, about 5 years. And let me tell you, there's something about taking a club and hitting that little golf ball that just helps you to release that energy. And I did the driving range, and then I went golfing with my dad last Monday. And I think I hit the ball the best I have ever hit the ball before. Mm-hmm. And part of it too was staying focused. And I feel the feeling for me going into the Mars retrograde, it's really going to help me to even stay more focused. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and she said to me, you need to redo all your daily rituals. And I started laughing, and I was like, this has to do with Mars with retrograde tomorrow. I know it does.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt it already coming, like certain things that I do, certain ways that I protected my space, energies that I called in. I felt like I was up leveling or ascending. And I was like, I think I really need to start changing things up. And then she said it. And then you had said, like, this is daily rituals, daily practices. And like, I feel like things have to shift and change. And this is a perfect time to redirect my daily practices into something new. And it's just all lining up. I could have went the other way and be like, you know what? No, I like my practices. I'm done. I'm not doing that. But for me, the resistance isn't there. It's the redirect that's there. But for some, the resistance could be there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. There is a little resistance somewhere along the line, but it doesn't have to do with that.
Well, it's hard to change our patterns. And this is really about having, harnessing on that energy and having the courage and the bravery to get out of your comfort zone too.
Yeah. And, that was actually, I think, part of my life too. I don't know. I do a lot of lives anymore, but getting out of your comfort zone is as simple as changing your daily routine. I think I was talking about this with Cindy, and she's like, yeah, try brushing your teeth with your left hand instead of your right hand.
Yeah, it's perfect. That teaches you a new skill.
And it's something new. Like it's out of your comfort zone. You're so comfortable doing this. Do it this way. See how comfortable you are. Just little things like that. If you're used to like driving one way home all the time, drive a different way. Believe it or not, that is getting you out of your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be jumping on and doing a Facebook Live or, speaking somewhere. Those are examples of getting out of your comfort zone if you're not, but there's also small ways that you can build it up and get out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I am really excited about this Mars in retrograde. I'm really excited about the energy that's coming in. And I feel there's a refocusing too. Not just myself, but with a good portion of the collective, I feel like there's a refocusing. I think it's really ironic in a way that it's also happening at the beginning of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, back in March in the US, most schools shut down and they had to learn online. And now they're going back, and, you know, some school systems have learned and refocused, like some of the things that they've done, or they've had to think outside their box and, you know, online these days, back to school these days. So there's been a lot of like refocusing on how we think about education. Like there's a lot of that also happening, and it just aligns right in the right time. And it doesn't mean that it's not going to be frustrating, but I think that if you choose not to resist, it'll be a little bit easier, a lot easier actually for you.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that has to do with a lot of what we've seen so far in 2020 about the old systems that are breaking down. So we're seeing that with a lot of things: government, education, monetary systems. I mean, you name it. I think it's come up this year so far. And the several chats, there'll be like I said, the energy is going to change as we go. There will be several chapters of this time period, in part due to Mars squaring the planets that are in Capricorn. So a square is a 90-degree angle. Aries squares Capricorn. So what we've already seen over the last couple of weeks were the Mars squaring the planets for the first time. Now it's going to go backwards, quote unquote backwards, square the planets again while it's retrograde, and then it will go direct and square the planets again for a third time. And a lot of the Capricorn planets have been retrograde: Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. So one by one, they'll turn direct. So it's going to be like this back and forth of probably revisiting some of these things. Like you said, education for one of them. Jupiter goes direct on Saturday. So there's going to be many different layers and many different chapters of the continuing saga based on these square aspects that Mars is now making to the Capricorn planets. When all of this started back in February, March, it was going through Capricorn and joining up with all of them. And now it's moved on and it's squaring them.
What does the squares mean?
Squares are 90-degree angles. Squares can feel like challenges, but they're also great opportunity. They force action to change and make things better and learn our lessons. So we're also going through that individually and collectively. Everyone's going to have Aries and Capricorn somewhere in their own chart. So that's another individual layer as well for this whole experience.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Exciting times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are you looking forward most in this retrograde? Either for yourself or for the collective, or you can answer both.
I'm looking forward most to changes actually happening for a lot of the things that we've seen break down. I think we've been in this review period with everything. And now that everything is meeting up again in a different way, I think that a lot of it is going to be about acting on things and not resisting things, and going with the change and seeing how things do, testing things out. Like you said, online learning versus in person, or a hybrid of the two. Anything that comes up where it forces us to reconsider things and act in a different way that's ultimately going to benefit us individually and collectively. I think revisions to all the structures and all the systems that are already in play. It's something, this is such a historic time. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, like my parents, they're in their 60s, and I asked them, like, have you ever experienced anything like this before in your entire life? The answer is no. And a lot of it too is trusting the unknown. That's what I wrote about with the Pisces full moon that we just had. We went from the Pisces is the end of the zodiac, and now we're going to be in that beginning of the zodiac Aries territory. So also just trusting our intuition and trusting our instincts, I think, are going to be key to navigating this. And just also how we are going to be working through whatever happens. I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen. Things are so, the slate is being wiped clean in such an interesting way in many ways. So I think that it is frustrating and it is scary, but I think it's incredibly interesting. And as we said before, a great opportunity.
I'm really excited about this opportunity because to me, it's like a fresh start.
Yeah.
And I feel like me personally, I've really have had to learn to let go of a lot. Like I was so like structured that in certain things, and so structured and so like liking things certain ways that over the last 5 years ago I've had to really shift out of that and change things. And now change is really exciting for me. The unknown is really exciting. And not saying that there's no fear or there's no like sometimes that hesitation, because we are human, we are having human experiences. But when I tap into my higher self and that, and really in that divine light being, it's exciting. It's like a kid leading up to Christmas. That's the energy I feel for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning how to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that has been forced, and it's been big lessons.
Yeah, a lot of it. So what are some tips besides maybe learning martial arts or exercise to expel some of that energy out?
I think it would be really fun to watch movies. When I wrote about this, I compared the experience to the movie The Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could be really fun to kind of revisit movies like that, where it's like a hero's story. Karate Kid in particular, because it really does so beautifully show the light and the dark sides of the expression of this energy. One thing to keep in mind also is during Mars retrograde times, personal enemies or frenemies or rivals can come back into our lives. So if that happens to you, just keep in mind that that's coming up for a reason, and there is always a lesson, and to make sure that your focus is not on what the rivalry was or, what has happened in the past, but to move forward from that, a better person.
Mm.
One of the things that I thought about when I was thinking about after I, got the words for it from the other astrologer was that instinct to be what we really are. You're a fan of the Wonder Woman movies and everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, remember in the newest movie, like the one just about her, in that scene where she gets to the war, he's brought her to Aries, and she's in the trench, and she finally just says, enough of this, no more, we're done. And she throws the coat off, and she comes out of that trench, and she just starts running towards the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, harness that energy inside of you. I just think that's one of the most perfect expressions of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
She finally becomes fearless in who she actually is.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite movies that has the example like that is Captain Marvel, where she goes back. I forget what they call it, where she goes back and they like chain her up. She meets whatever it is, and like she sees flashes of her life, and the lady is like, well, you're only human. And she's like, you're right. And like, she comes through it. And because she didn't realize she was human when she started the show, but she's like, you're right. And I always get back up, and like, she breaks through the changes. And like, that's to be like stepping into your power and owning your power. Like at that point, even though she had these superpowers, she was owning her human self.
Yep.
And that was also a theme in my conversation yesterday, was stepping into my power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stepping into your own power, empowerment, all of that.
Yeah. And just because you stepped into your power doesn't mean you don't have more power to step into.
Yeah, personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of that. And I think it's important to know these things about ourselves and know what tools we have in our own personal toolboxes that help us remember and get into that energy. So a steady diet of anything that helps you be more of who you truly are and what you are, and remembering what we are, that we're all connected. There's so much division. There's so much hate. Just remember that we are still one on a soul level. Even though it can feel, I mean, Mars energy is very much about separation. So rising above that and knowing how to keep yourself in that light and higher vibration energy is going to be so important for us individually and collectively.
We're all individuals and can stand in our own individuality, but also stand together as one.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of movies like that out there too.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know.
Yeah, movies and books are great resources for times like this.
Yeah. I watched one of the shows on Hulu during, because we lost TV. We don't have shows that are coming out because they couldn't. I watched Utopia Falling, I think it's called, on Hulu. And they put different people in different sectors, and then they come together to dance. But they took all the technology leading up to this, and they hid it away because technology is what destroyed Earth or their planet. And so they have they go to Gaia is who they like honor as Gaia. And so they all come from these different areas, and they're all told that they're all equal, but you just have like different, so you have industry, and then you have nature, progress, and then there's another one, reform is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And so the other people from the other three areas, all thinking like, oh, we're one, we're all this. And then they meet these guys from reform, and they realize that the people in reform have not had the same opportunities they have. So they're not all been on equal playing field. And then they go back and they end up finding this like tomb that has all this technology in it, and start learning about, resistance, peaceful protest and things like that. And they bring that into their dance, and they use their dance as an expression of this.
Oh, wow. And
it's maybe not the best, like the whole concept of the show is really cool. The acting and stuff, but sometimes it's about the message more than it's about the whole acting part too. But it just kind of goes through, realize like they work together, but they were all individual. And even though they tried to create this utopia where everybody was equal, they still couldn't. Everybody was still individuals. Even if you gave them the same outfit, they all wore it differently.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. And that's
exactly things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Superhero movies. The Lord of the Rings is a great one to revisit.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one I picked out? Oh, Harry Potter.
Uh-huh.
Harry Potter, Wonder Woman, superhero movies, Karate Kid. There's also a reboot of the Karate Kid on Netflix called Cobra Kai. Interestingly enough, when I was doing my research on it, I found out that the first season came out in May of 2018, right before the last retrograde.
Wow.
And the second season was just released recently.
Huh.
They had all of the Karate Kid movies up on Netflix until last week, so you have to find them somewhere else. But there's 2 seasons of Cobra Kai, and that is really, really cool because it's that rivalry is back, and it's now like, you know, Johnny's redemption and the light and the dark are still there, but in different ways. It's like a reboot of the whole thing. Like the script is flipped.
That's cool. I'm actually watching the cartoon version of Avatar. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, nice. No, not the cartoon version.
Yeah. So my friend Elise was telling me about it, and it's broken down in elements. It's really so the Avatar can channel all the elements, but then you have earthbenders who can work with earth and airbenders who can work with air, but the Avatar is actually the last airbender. Then you have the fire tribe, and there's firebenders, they can work with fire. And then you have water, and they talk about like the different properties, but again, they don't work together. Sometimes they resist and work to that. But when they show them like working, especially the water, where they show them, it's like your chi. And there's so much, you would love it because there's so much in there to learning. But there is this rivalry because like the fire is trying to take over the whole world, and they're after the Avatar, and there's like this, you know, constant battle of the dark. But then the Avatar also is battling the dark and the light within, because when he gets enraged, that's when he activates the Avatar, but he doesn't really know how to activate it unless he's in that rage. And when he's in that rage, he destroys things. It's very interesting. And this, I think, was, I don't know when it was made, a few years ago. Might be 2013, 2018. I think it was 2013 it came out.
Yeah.
But I've been enjoying it because there's so much I've been learning, and even learning about the elements and just like reconfirming things. But it's a good one to watch too.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because right now the square off is between fire and earth. So those two don't exactly go, you know, harmoniously together, as we see with a lot of the wildfires and things that are happening now too.
Yeah. Did you see the picture of California?
It looks like it would on Mars, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. It looks like the red planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I saw a picture of like the sun, and it was like red, like really red. I was like, wow.
Yeah. My brother lives there, and they've been sending us pictures every day, and it's wild.
Yeah. And it just goes to show you like what above, what is it? So above, so below, like how that it's a reflection of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I've been finding really helpful is music. I created a Spotify playlist, so that's also there as a resource for people.
Was it called Mars Retrograde?
Mars, RX, and Aries 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting too. I found a lot of these things just started coming together. Stones. If anyone likes to work with stones, I was looking for one that would represent this time, that would be helpful for people. And I got an email from healingcrystals.com, and the stone that they had featured was snowflake obsidian.
Ooh.
So one of the things that it says about it is the quote that she used to describe sort of how to work with the energy and what the stone can help with. I may not approve, but I accept and respect even if I don't fully understand, and I choose to support you irrespective.
Wow. That is, that's amazing. In 2018, I wore that stone. No, in 2017, I wore that stone quite a bit around my neck in the shape of a heart.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, going in and And part of it was for protection, spiritual protection. But what you just said and what you just read, like, really resonated back to that time period. And I've never heard that about that stone.
Yeah, the article is really cool. People can look at it on the healingcrystals.com website. And one of the other things she said about it, it's a stone of purity. She says that it brings about a balance to body, mind, and spirit. It helps to keep you centered and focused when any type of chaotic situation presents itself, and also promotes a sense of calm and inner centering. You may be in a hot debate, but you don't want that heat to overtake you. You want to remain centered and calm so you can still hear and witness the other person or situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working with this yesterday, and it's also a root chakra stone, which is related to our survival and instincts.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty perfect.
Yeah, I surrounded my stuff with some crystals today. I have black kyanite.
Oh, nice.
And then it's funny because I thought I grabbed the Apache tear, and I'm like, that's not that. It's smoky quartz, which for me is not very grounding at all. It connects me greater to spirit, my intuition. And then I have my friend Christina made this, and it has tourmaline tourmaline on it, but it's blue kyanite. That's the only, somebody told me I need to work with tourmaline. That's the only part I have. And then I have this stone on it. I can't tell if it's black or green. And I'm completely drawing a blank on the name of it. But I like just gather some new stones to work with, to have around. And a lot of grounding stones.
Yeah.
A lot of grounding stones.
Energy cleansing, like you were saying before, protection, personal protection. The other thing, too, to keep in mind is Mars energy can tend to be injury prone or accident prone, and Aries rules the head. So whatever we're doing, just be extra mindful and protective. Take things a little slower because we don't want any head injuries or any injuries. Some typical experiences during this time can be injuries that force us to slow down.
Very interesting. Usually at this time, the last couple of years, I've gone into this with migraines.
Yeah, I've had some too lately.
Have not had any. And part of it is I've been really mindful, making sure I'm drinking water. I did have one the other day. I woke up in the middle of the night, but I knew I didn't drink enough water. So I've been very mindful of that. But also of allowing the guidance to come through. So your spiritual practice, I've been really up on my spiritual practice and taking the time to meditate and taking the time to rest and things like that. So it's very, very important for that. And I've learned that hard lesson over the last few years that now I'm doing a lot better to protect myself. But it's ironic that you said it's the head, because I really have not experienced yet, and I hope not to experience headaches like I did last year. Yeah. But it's very interesting. The whole topic has been very interesting. Any other fun facts or things that we should know about Mars and Mars in retrograde?
Well, one thing that's awesome is during the retrograde, the planet is closest, like I said, so it's big and bright and beautiful in the night sky. So right after sunset, if you look east, you can see Saturn and Jupiter together. And then around after 10:30-ish, it's in what's called its midnight star phase. Mars is up. So you can actually see them squaring off in the sky.
That's cool.
It's like a battle of the gods. So I've been communing with the planet a lot. I'll just go outside before I go to bed and look at it. Visually connecting with the planet, I think, is a wonderful way to connect with the planet's energy. So that's what I've been doing personally. And it's awesome. We never see it this big and bright. Once every 2 years it gets like this. So it's something to savor for sure as far as the visual connection. And I always find it helpful, as you were saying, with spiritual practice to pull cards. So that's another thing that we can do along the way. And I pulled one for us for this topic today. And I pulled from my Rebecca Campbell Work Your Light Oracle deck, just because that's sort of what we're talking about, is everyone working their own individual light for the collective. And the card that I picked is, I don't want to butcher the name of it, but I'm going to try and pronounce it. Mintakan, and it says, longing for home, belonging, the original light workers.
Oh. Longing for home, belonging, and the original light workers.
And I'd like to read the short guidebook description, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So this is from the transmission cards section of the deck. And it says, Mintakans are a soul group who originated on a planet in the constellation Orion. They were the first star beings to travel to Earth, and believed to be the original light workers. The Mintakans' home planet is thought to have been a water world, with water so pure that you could see through it for miles. For this reason, Mintakans feel most at peace and at home when in or around crystal clear water. They are here to teach us to see the potential in everything and the light in all beings. Many Mintakans have an odd longing for home and struggle with feeling like they don't belong. It is thought that this is due to their home planet no longer being in existence. If you pulled this card, it could mean that you are a Mintakan or are longing for a sense of belonging, and root chakra healing is necessary for you to feel secure and safe. Perhaps you feel this longing to find home without knowing where that is. Perhaps you've been moving around a lot and yearn for a place on Earth to call your own. If so, you are being called to connect with Mother Earth and create it for yourself now, to choose where you feel most at home and create it rather than waiting for the feeling of belonging to come. And the little prayer that it comes with is, I allow myself to be truly here and at home on this planet. I release any grief around not belonging or feeling held and call in the perfect home.
So it is.
So it is. This or something better.
When you were reading that and reading where they were coming through, I was feeling this love light transmission coming through. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to give this transmission. And as soon as I made that conscious thought, just went phew, right away. And I was like, where'd you go? And I guess it's not meant for this time, but maybe sometime soon they'll be back to do it. But it was like I could feel their presence around us and come through. And I was like, oh, it felt so tranquil is the word.
Mm-hmm.
With them.
Yeah, so being in water could help too. Getting in the ocean, if people listening are here, should be wonderful. It's like local summer now, so it's the perfect time to get to the beach and get into that cleansing, saltwater ocean energy.
Yes.
And just, remembering that we are all here for a reason. I have had times during this year where I felt, did I really incarnate at this time? Like what, why?
Yeah.
I can't deny that I've had those thoughts for sure. But I always come back to, yes, I did. Get back into that zone, ground my energy, connect with spirit in some way, and just know that we're supported, regardless of how crazy things seem. This is all happening for a reason. And now we have, the planet of motivation and bravery so close, and the energy is just waiting for us to work with it.
Yeah. You're not the only one that has had those feelings of did I really do this now, or do I belong? what's her name? Cannon. What's her first name? Dorothy?
Dolores.
Dolores Cannon?
Dolores.
Yeah, Dolores Cannon, I was listening to one of her YouTubes a couple of weeks ago. I always like to tap in and listen to her. And she was talking about how light beings like raised their hand to show up to be here. And when they got here, they were like, what the heck that we did? And some of them were like, nope, I'm out. And like, you know, when you say no, you're out, your physical body dies and your spirit leaves your body. And I was it's kind of interesting now that you said that, because I watched it a few weeks ago and now it's coming back in. And that happens there's been a lot, not just unrest, but there's been a lot of suicides a lot lately.
Yeah.
And when I mean, you can look at the last year and a half that this is happening, not just with everybody. Like you can look at like celebrities or like influencers and things like that, and musicians, and they're like, I don't feel like I belong here. Let me step off. But there is that time for you to reflect and say, no, I chose here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And like the card say, you can choose your own home. It reminds me of Thor, when they blow up, the planet ends up catching on fire and they leave it. And it's not the planet that makes the home, it's the people.
Exactly.
You know, it's not necessarily your blood family that makes you a family. It's who you choose to make you a family.
Exactly.
All these self-reflections and things that will potentially pop up during this time period with Mars in retrograde.
Yeah. And keep that, write it down somewhere, put it up on your bathroom mirror, do something, but the instinct to be what we really are.
To be what we really are.
Mm-hmm. We're all on a mission.
To find and work our life path, our light purpose, to do our light work that we're here to do.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for this amazing conversation about Mars. If you don't know where your Mars is and you want to know, you can book your natal reading with Ursula and learn all about where your Mars is in your chart, along with some other helpful, useful information, because there is a lot.
I created a new service just for this time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my 90-minute service, but discounted 10%. And it's on there on my store, or just it's the Mars Retrograde and Aries reading.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to go deeper with it.
Yeah. And so all her information will link, including the service that we provide together, which is intuitive heart and soul healing. So it's a healing along with your natal reading, and they have been very powerful in themselves. So I do love those. Yeah, I love those. And for those that I know and we know that have had them done, it's so amazing to watch what they end up doing with it. All that information, that healing. So thank you very much. Where can people reach you and follow you? On Instagram?
I'm Ursa Alchemy on Instagram, and my website is ursaalchemy.com.
Yeah. And I'm Intuitive Heart Healer on Instagram. On Facebook, I have an Intuitive Heart Healer group. And if you want to book a sessions with me, it's intuitivehearthealer.com. Thank you all for joining us. I'm so grateful you're here listening. I'm so grateful for my guest. It's always an honor to be in her presence and to have her with me on the show. And until next time, go out and spread some love in this world. I am sending all my love to all of you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.